Welcome to the Deep Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Neel Parekh. Neel is the founder and CEO of Made This, a company which helps homeowners and short-term rental hosts with their cleaning needs. He has a very unique story. He built this business from the ground up with a fully remote team, and now Neel is on a mission to help others do the same. So Neel, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sean. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you, and I think your story is really unique, and I'm really anxious to hear how you did it, how you built this company from nothing to where it is today over the past 7 years or so. Um, but tell us about why you decided to leave. You had a really good job,
Mm-hmm.
everything was good in your life, and you decided to leave leave the corporate world for the entrepreneurial world. So tell us about your journey.
Sure. It is funny whenever anyone asks that question, not just to me, but to any entrepreneur, because it sounds ridiculous, right? Like, why would
Right.
you possibly do this? Like, make less money for a long time, go through all this hardship for it. It's kind of one of the things, and John, I'm sure you could attest, it's kind of the next challenge in some ways. But my reason was I was working in venture capital for a while in private equity, and it was doing tech investments. It was, I like the people I worked with. I just don't think I was really fit for the corporate life. And in the back of my head, I always had the vision of just backpacking for a year. I thought I'd quit my job, get a backpack on, go to South America, to hostel hop and go to different places and just backpack for a year and kind of figure out from there what I'd want to do. So I wanted to get some sort of side hustle which would allow me to achieve that, allow me to work remotely and travel the world. So yeah, that was really the impetus for starting, and it kind of happened on accident. I don't know if on accident is the right way to describe it, but I was trying to find a traditional remote quote unquote business like
Right.
e-commerce, drop shipping, microblogging. And I was on reddit.com, and a guy had said, "Hey, I started a cleaning company and here's the steps." And I thought, okay, well, I'm doing these other things. Let me just give this a shot as well. And it started working. But at the same time, I kept thinking like, well, this is like a local business. I can't do this remotely.
Right.
And finally, a light bulb came off of, well, hey, let me try to do this remotely. I learned a lot of things on how to do this remotely. Let me give it a shot. And kind of through a lot of trial and error, figured out how to have what I now call kind of a remote local business. It's a local business that but you could manage it completely remotely. So, yeah, after that, I went to South America and was backpacking like I wanted to, working on the business full time. And 1 year ended up becoming 5 years. So I just got back because of COVID, but I was on the road just building my local business while traveling.
So really interesting. So the idea, the concept is remote local business.
Yeah.
But now I got to ask you, I mean, you're a venture capital guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Making big tech deals all day long, and you decide to start a cleaning business.
It sounds ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah, that honestly, and for me, and John, I'm curious to hear from you from why you started the manufacturing thing, but I feel like it was a means to an end for me,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
I think I like the aspect of business and what I like the process of business, figuring it out, building a team, improving yourself, which helps improve the business. But the end medium of what we were selling, to be honest, it didn't matter to me as much. I felt like the business was a vehicle to help achieve the lifestyle I wanted, to help provide for my family,
Okay.
to help provide for the lifestyle I wanted. So, whether it's cleaning or windows or e-commerce, it was kind of agnostic to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. If I were to talk about a business that I would start, and if that business was a cleaning business, there's
Hmm.
no way I would think that you could create a cleaning business remotely. That would be
Hmm.
the last idea, because that's essentially a service business, which is a people business, which means you're putting, you have people cleaning homes and rental properties and this
Yep.
sort of thing. So take us through, how did you conceptualize the idea of this kind of a service business in a remote way?
Yeah. So honestly, it's not like I had a genius mastermind saying I was a genius and thinking, "Oh, this is how it's going to work." It was kind of like, "Hey, I'm going somewhere. I have to figure this out because I have no other choice."
Hmm.
And in hindsight, I tell you what I kind of learned, John, which is local services businesses that are people focused lend themselves the best to the remote local model. Right? If you
Hmm.
have a brick and mortar store where people have to walk in to buy clothes or something, it's tough. Right? It's
Hmm.
very tough to make that a remote business. But when you have a local service business, let's talk about this cleaning. Yeah, let's talk about locksmiths. They could go straight from their home to the job site. So
Right.
really what you're doing
Right.
is you need dispatch, you need someone to coordinate, you need someone to interview people, you need someone to be on the phones to manage things. And the reality is technology has moved so rapidly that what we previously thought of a local business no longer exists in that same capacity. So
Okay.
give an example, my parents had video rental stores growing up. Like, do you remember the old Blockbusters, John?
Oh yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, so they had a couple of them, and that's kind of what I think people think about when they think of a local business, standing business. You have products in the store, people coming in and out. You have to have it staffed at all times. But now you have things like Slack, you have voice over IP systems for phone calls, you have online booking. Like most of our bookings come from people who don't even talk to us.
Hmm.
They just go online and book, right? So I think technologies move very rapidly. And what I love about the local services market in hindsight is they're just behind the times, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think people perception of it is behind the times, but also truly most of them are kind of behind the times in terms of what they do. So as long as you kind of keep up
yeah.
with the trends, it makes it worth it.
You're right about that. I mean, I've always said that, I've lived, because I was in corporate for 22 years and I was in the military, I moved all over the place. I lived in 9 different states. And I can say every time I was in a new area trying to find someone, an electrician or a plumber or trying to find a dentist and it just seemed like, yeah, I mean, it was hit or miss, right? And as you mentioned, especially service, people coming out to your house, I mean, it can be very frustrating. You get everything from guys that are right on time and they
Mm-hmm.
take care of you to people that never show up or people that promise you one thing and do another. So there's a lot of, and typically it's a guy or a woman that has a skill, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they build a business around it. So they're a good carpenters. They build a carpentry business, where they're an
Correct.
electrician, but they're really not good business people, right? That they don't
Yep.
really know. They might be really good skilled in their craft, but as far as the building the model around the business, they're not that good at it. And I've always said this to my wife. It was funny because I
Mm.
always said, if someone can figure this out and actually um, get these people all on the same page, build a front end system for them or something that makes their life easier so they can focus on their craft, then I think they could be a lot more successful. And it sounds like, in a way, that's what you've done. You've kind of built the front end system for this company. Is that right, or am I putting words in your mouth?
No, that's a very astute observation from you. So I'll give you an example. The company's been around since 2013. We just started franchising this year, basically. So we have 2 franchise locations, and I'm helping open up one in Myrtle Beach right now. So I told him,
Wow, that's a big market for cleaning.
yeah, it's a great market. So we're doing the onboarding process of training, and the franchisee's owner, his name is Dan. And I said, Dan, call the top 10 competitors. He's like, Neil, you won't believe me. 8 of them never picked up, never got
Mm,
back to me. The 2 who picked up, one of them said they're booked and hung up, and the other one gave me like a kind of a crazy quote. That was it.
yeah,
That was the top 10 competition in Myrtle Beach. So this is a recurring theme. In cleaning, your competitive advantage is picking up the phone. As ridiculous as that sounds, that is a competitive advantage. And this is the same for a lot of local service providers. They just don't know how to do business. Now, if you look at it from the other perspective of, okay, well, if it's so easy to market, why doesn't everyone do it? Here's the reality: is from a private equity and venture capital perspective, that's too small for them.
right,
They're going for scale. They're going for nationwide. It's harder to scale a local services business because it's very people dependent. It's very local market dependent. You don't get
right,
the rapid growth like you would in a software company, things like that. So a lot of big money is not chasing local services. At the same time, the small guys don't exactly know what they're doing, as we could all attest to. So in the middle, there's really just like kind of a slightly more sophisticated business minded people who might be taking advantage of the market and saying, great, I don't have to compete against the humongous guys, but also I just have to provide a really good service and a good front end for the customers, and you could beat a lot of local competition. So I think that's true for any very local specific type of market. And you could probably even assess what are those markets. If you're asking, go look at what franchises exist. Right, those are all
yeah,
local businesses. Same as ours. It's a franchise business now. It's a local business. If you look at a lot of the other local companies, a lot of the ones which you scaled from are franchises, but there's so
right.
many locations in the world, right? There's unlimited locations. So it is very possible to build a remote local business in a location you haven't even been in.
Yeah, Outstanding. That's true. Yeah, it's funny. I think about way back when Waste Management was getting started. They went and they
Hmm.
bought up all these mom and pop garbage collection
Yeah.
companies across the country, and they, back then there was a lot of front end systems, but they standardized the process. Standardized the logos, the paint schemes, the eventually websites, and so that it was like one number you call and you get your garbage picked up versus trying to figure out who and where and what have you. So
Yep.
yeah, so it's almost a standardization in getting people on board in a way that's very professional front end, systems and kind of what they're used to, what people are more used to doing business like today. So we're used to going
Hmm.
online and looking for parts and things, buying something on Amazon is super easy, right?
Hmm.
So we're used to going online and doing business transactions that way. I know, I was reading your story and you do, like, for example, Airbnb renters. You'll do do cleaning services for them. So we've gotten used to, I use Airbnb all the time. We've gotten used to booking a room online and without ever seeing it and staying at somebody's house, right? So we're used to this shared model. So yeah, so I would think it's for us, it should be easy to order our services through a similar type of channel, whether it's an app or whether it's online.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, John, everyone's expecting that now, right? Like I get
Yeah.
frustrated if I'm on a phone and I'm like, I have to get an estimate in person. Like this is terrible. Like what age do we live in? But it wasn't that long ago that was normal, right? Things just move very rapidly, and that's what people expect, especially like in kind of the millennial crowd. You expect to be able to go to a mobile-friendly website, book a cleaning, get a confirmation email. You expect to be able to talk to someone, for someone to be on the online to handle your customer service needs. I think people forget that wasn't the case like 10, 15 years ago. That it
Yeah.
wasn't like that, right? That's not the norm until recently, but that's the expectation. So if you could keep up with the times in terms of what people are looking for, you do really well. So here's an example for Airbnbs, which is a large part of what we're doing is vacation rentals, right? We're actually the first franchise focused on vacation rental cleaning that exists in the U.S. But with that, hosts think about what is the most convenient for them. They have checkouts all the time, and right now they have to text their cleaner, hope their cleaner shows up, and remind them, "Hey, you have a cleaning tomorrow." And the cleaner shows up, does the cleaning, and the host has to think, "Okay, did they do a good job or not?" So we have a simple platform, which is third-party software, but we've kind of married it all together where we could sync with the host calendar, automatically schedule cleaning with us after checkout. The cleaner goes, does the checklist, takes pictures. The host gets a report at the end of it with any supplies or damage restocking. So that type of thing is not hard to do. This isn't custom software, it's off the shelf software. But you know for sure the mom and pop company down the street is not doing that, right? So as long as
Right.
you do that, you'd be ahead of the competition, provide value for the customer, make it super convenient, and likely be able to charge a premium for that convenience as well.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about starting this up. So, what one of the things that this is, a leadership podcast, and
Hmm.
one of the big parts of being leader is being present. And so you're already saying that we're not being present. So how do you so that's kind of an interesting thing right from the get-go. So how do you start a business? How do you build a team when a lot of your team is likely going to be remote? I assume
Mm.
you don't have all your employees backpacking with you when you go on your trips, right? So, how
Yeah.
did you build a remote team to start
Yeah.
this?
So our team is across 6 different countries right now. Of
Oh,
course, the cleaners are local to
local,
the market
right?
they're in, but the operations team is based off 6 different countries. So it started just because hey, we needed to pick up someone to pick up the phones, and you realize, oh, I don't need that to route to someone in Los Angeles. I'm just going to route it somewhere else.
Yeah,
Technology. So you find someone and you realize like, okay, we need to build a company culture as you get more and more people. So we use the same operating systems in terms of like, have you heard of EOS, John? Like
mhm,
entrepreneur operating system? Same framework as you would with the physical store. We just do everything online. So we did this before COVID existed, right? Where now everyone's remote. So it is more normalized, but you have your level 10 meetings, meaning weekly meetings, one-on-one meetings, you have a quarterly planning meeting, you have annual meetings. So the framework and the way of communicating is all it's the same. It's just done online. So we use Slack for everything. So I'm actually
yeah,
very, very present in the business. It's not a passive business. It's not a set and forget it. I'm very much active in there, but just the medium of doing it is through Slack as opposed to phone call or an
yeah.
in-person meeting.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
That's great.
I haven't. Funny enough, I've not met most of the people I've been working with for years. Never met them.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's wild. That's really, I mean, I guess, now in the last year and a half, we're kind of used to it. I'm used to looking at faces on screens.
Right.
I don't know how many sales calls I've made in the past year and a half where it's been me and a camera and my products, holding up my products in front of different clients and what
Yeah.
have you. So it's just,
I'm loving it. I don't know what you think about it, John, but how do you feel about it?
I kind of like it too. I mean, it's funny because I spent 22 years in corporate, traveled all over the world. I mean, I've spent so many hours in airports eating bad food and waiting, flight delays and missing,
Hmm.
missing or getting in the back of a cab in Mexico City and just so many stories, right? Through 22 years of just doing that to where the last year and a half's kind of been nice a little bit. It's been kind of quiet. And it's kind of getting back to doing things I enjoy, and not having a schedule, which was almost impossible to manage, right? As far as
Hmm.
where I'm supposed to be, all the time. So it's been kind of nice to say, well, I'll turn on the camera and I can have that meeting. Like, I was just in a meeting up in New England um, yesterday, and then last week I was in a meeting in Alabama. So, and I didn't travel. So that's nice. So it's nice to be able
Yeah,
to do that. So I think in a way it's been nice for guys like me who have been kind of road warriors to be able to get a little breather. So I think
absolutely.
so in a way it hasn't been too bad for us and our team. So
Yeah,
yeah,
here's been
yeah,
one benefit for us as well on the local service side is we used to have to do in-person group interviews because that's what
yeah,
cleaners are used to, right? You go for an in-person interview, you want to see someone in person for that group
right,
interview. Now because and part of that is technology based. I would love to do video and Zoom for cleaner interviews, but most people didn't really know how to use Zoom, right?
yeah,
Especially in that demographic. Now everyone knows how to use Zoom, right? Like
yeah.
my parents are doing Zoom karaoke all the time and they're 70 years old. Like it's just everyone knows how to do Zoom. So with that, cleaners also are very comfortable and it's
Mm,
normalized to do video calls, get on Zoom, use technology. So for us, that's been hugely beneficial for interviews. You no longer have to do in-person interviews, which completely eliminates the need for any local presence. We
yeah.
did have someone who was somewhat local just to be able to do the interviews. Now it's not really necessary at all because everything is going to be video based, and it kind of expedited the timeline for getting a lot of that demographic up to speed on technology, which has been really, really good.
Yeah, that's been great for that standpoint. It makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you now, so the cleaners themselves, are they employees of you, or are they like an Uber driver where they own their own kind of business? How does that work?
Yeah, good question. So in California, they are independent contractors with us.
Okay.
In other states, you can be employees or independent contractors. It really just
Okay.
depends on the state's labor laws and how you want to treat them.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So in actuality, you have a workforce, but it's not really a workforce. It's independent. It's basically a group of independent contractors that basically respond to where you have a need for a cleaning service that you have people.
exactly, exactly. And there's a large vetting process with that because what
Yeah.
clients need is a reliable cleaner. So we have to screen them, right, to make sure
Yeah.
whoever's on our platform is super reliable, and that we can reference check them, background check them, things like that. But that is correct. Yep.
So my question to you is this: because you want to build a different kind of company, right? One that
Hmm.
is responsive and then does the job really well. What kind of people challenges have you had through dealing with these cleaners in different places in the country?
It's been any people-based business, and John, I'm sure you could attest to this. It's hard, right?
Yeah,
Because you realize people don't always think the way you do, right?
right.
Especially if they're from different backgrounds. So sometimes, you'll get situations of cleaners just calling out, customers super angry, they have a check-in happening, cleaners just saying, I'm not going to go. What are you going to do? Right.
Right.
So we have to have contingency plans, and sometimes those contingency plans fall through because everything is based off of other humans.
Mm,
That's the downside, in my opinion, of a service business. Downside, I guess, think about it however you want. Downside, pro. In some cases, it's a downside because you're dealing with human error. It's not a robots who are always going to respond
right.
to what you
Right.
want. So that is hugely the downside is you can't control what happens. Everyone has things happen in their lives. People's cars break down. They have a medical emergency. They just don't want to go, right? And then what are you going
Yeah.
to do? So for us, to be honest, it is tough to make sure we provide the best service for clients because they expect us to be better than the local mom and pop shop who calls out. But sometimes it's just very difficult to actually deliver on that. So we do have guarantees around that. We do provide credits, refunds, have a
Yeah.
whole customer care team just cater towards that need.
Okay. Is
Yeah.
it similar? Is your model similar to like an Uber driver where they're rated or ranked or anything like that, or is it different than that?
I'd probably attribute it more to like a matchmaking service as opposed to the Uber model, because it's not
Okay.
as automated
Okay.
where it's like, hey, who cares who we send? We vet these people. They go through a 5-step vetting process before they're
Okay.
even on board. We know them. So a customer will say, hey, I need a cleaner. We say, perfect. I have the perfect match for you. This is who it's going to be. If there's any issues, let me know. We could kind of be the middleman with it. So
Okay.
that's a little bit more how the model goes. I would say more of like a staffing or matchmaking model with a focus on obviously the cleaning industry and Airbnbs.
So how long, you got started, you've been doing this, how long? 7.5 years? Is that roughly
Yeah,
right?
about 8 years.
About 8 years. So
Yeah.
how long into the process did you feel like things were moving to the point it was moving smooth enough where you felt like you could kind of travel and kind of let it run a little more remotely? How long did it take before you felt comfortable with, I'm going to go wherever, I'm going to go someplace with maybe where I have spotty Wi-Fi?
Yeah. I tried it at like within 1 year of me leaving my company. I tried it of like taking a full week off and going somewhere completely remote, and it was rough for my team.
Okay.
And that,
Okay.
I think it's a mix of like how fast are you growing and what are your growing pains and when do you really take off. I think is kind of the mix of the two. But yeah, I'd probably say I was mostly within a time zone where I could work on LA time, so I could be online for my team.
I
So I
see.
never made it to Asia until like late 2018. So I'd say probably that was the point where I was like, hey, I'm literally 12 hours ahead. There's nothing really I could do to help you guys out. So that's when I felt more of passing the torch per se to my team.
Yeah.
I probably could have done it earlier, right? I think if you put a little bit more stress on your team, you become less available. It actually would help them grow faster.
Yeah.
I just didn't do that. So for me, 2018 was really when I was like, hey, I'm offline. I can't help you guys out. Good luck. I'll be here in the morning.
So what you're telling me is I should just walk out of the office one day and just say good.
Honestly, yes. I wish I did that earlier. Yeah.
Because
Here's what will
you're
happen.
right, because people will adjust. I mean, it's a great leadership lesson too, is that people adjust to, if the leader is always there and always helping, then they become, part of the team and people rely on them. If you have those chances where you say, you know what, you're in charge, I'm gonna disconnect for a little while. And I think what you find is people will step up, people will fill those gaps, and they are much more capable than we give them credit for. And we don't necessarily have to be there every day running the show. It's in fact, it's important to allow people to rise up and take responsibility as well. So
Yeah. It's tough not to, John. And this is something I'm learning just now, 8 years in, is it's actually hindering people's growth if I help,
right.
which is tough because you see your team members struggling and you want to help them. You want to be like, oh, I got this. Don't worry, I'm going to handle this. But the right leadership approach would be to say, hey, I'm not going to get in the weeds because my value is a little bit more high level, right?
Right.
You present me the KPIs and what's going wrong, and we will solve it at designated times. In the meantime, I'm going to focus on the company vision. That's the best service you can do for your team members. But even now, like I still feel, I don't know if guilt's the right word, but I see my team members struggling and I'm like, I'm going to go help them out. Right. And
Right. Right.
it's tough to pull yourself back and say, that's not the right leadership move. Let them flounder, let them
Right.
not have to
Right.
just ping you and say, hey, can you solve this for me? That's the correct move.
Yeah, I agree. I know, like right now, for example, I'm temporarily doing quotes for the company because we had an employee leave. I've been doing this business. I've been in this industry for so long. I don't have to think about it. But I've recently hired a young college graduate to start doing the quotations of the projects, and he doesn't know anything about our technology and our business, but he's learning.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I tell him is, I said, you have to figure this out. You're not allowed to ask me any questions on this quote.
Yep.
I said, you've got, I will find one. I was like, you got to do this 100% on your own. And then let's talk about it. Like what questions you have. So I think like we're so quick to help, but I think the learning happens when you struggle, when the employee
Yeah.
is struggling a little bit and like, okay, well, how can I find this answer? What would I do if John wasn't there, right? How would I solve this problem? So I purposely say, don't ask me any questions. I just want you to do this on your own, and then come see me when when you have the quote done, so we can talk
Yeah.
about it. And I think those are really important lessons for people. Give them a chance to grow and not be controlled all the time.
Absolutely. It's scary because like if you're like, hey,
Yeah, yeah,
go look on this live sale, which we're gonna lose, and that's less, revenue to the company immediately, where you're like, oh, I could have closed that sale. It's tough. It's tough. It's still a battle I have to do.
yeah, yeah. No, I love that. So now you want to help other people do this sort of thing,
Hmm.
and not necessarily just in the cleaning business, but I know you have a podcast out now where you're talking about these remote local business concepts and
Hmm.
models. So talk to us a little bit about what you're doing to try to help others.
Yeah, sure. So the main avenues through Made This franchise,
Okay.
where people oftentimes will look at the model and say, "Hey, I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. Can I just
Oh, I
copy
see.
what you do?" And now I can
Yeah,
say, "Yeah, you could exactly copy what we're doing here." So what Made This franchise is kind of a work from anywhere local business model.
I see.
So
Okay.
we're a remote local business model. So we have a couple franchise locations right now. One's in Denver, one's in Myrtle Beach. Just launched that part of the business there. So mainly helping out people through franchising and being very, very selective with who we actually pick to kind of join the Made This team. And yeah, the other part, John, you mentioned is the remote local podcast. Launch a podcast just to talk about this concept and hopefully dispel some myths that having a local business means you're tied to that locality, and having local business means you have a limit on scale, which is not true. So we talk a lot about that on the podcast as well.
Yeah, and so for those that are listening and doubting this concept of a remote local business, your partner on the podcast, David, he
Mhm.
is running a locksmith business
Yeah,
remotely.
7 locksmith businesses remotely.
So,
So
so listen to that. The people are listening into this. So you think a locksmith has to be, it's a local business, local people. It's there's a skill set there that has to be known and understood, and
mhm.
he's doing it remotely. He's managing that business remotely.
I think he's in Barbados right now. So he's definitely managing it remotely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's really interesting. So, it's funny because I do hear, I listen to a lot of podcasts as an entrepreneur, and I'm always trying to learn, but I hear a lot of people talking about being digital nomads where they can run their business anywhere.
Hmm.
And what's interesting is they all kind of follow the same model, like almost some of the models you were thinking about when you were
Oh
starting
yeah.
your business.
Great. They do
They
great
all
marketing to get you on those models. Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's plenty of like people doing it that way. I think what I found unusual about your story is that you took it did a business that you wouldn't think would be a remote business or could be a remote business, and you made it work, you made it happen. And I think that's a pretty unique story.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, I agree with the nomad world. They kind of suck you in, right? They sell you the dream and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, buy my course, and I will teach you how to sell other people courses the same way I sold you this course." That's what the course is about,
Right,
and
right.
it goes in a big circle. So it took me a while to kind of understand, like, oh, that's what this is. There's another way to do it, which doesn't have to just follow the same blueprint. But honestly, there's like it's my business is one way to do it, right? There's a local service based business to be able to do that, but John, we were talking before this, like how can you make a manufacturing business remote, right?
Yeah,
That's the ultimate. If you can figure out how to make this remote, that's incredible. Now,
yeah,
obviously, when you're literally manufacturing something, there's aspects of it which cannot be remote.
yeah.
But from the team perspective, maybe there's some way to make it more lean and actually make it remote. So I feel like the way we are right now, maybe you can't. The way the world is moving right now, I think there's gonna be more and more local businesses which tend to be more remote, and they're going to trend that way.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think one of the things too that I've learned, maybe over the past 6 years or so, is that trying to find a way to separate your time from your ability to make money. And I think that's something
Hmm.
that people don't understand, that that's really an important concept. If you can make money when you're not working on something, like I'm a writer. I've written a couple of best-selling books, and the other day I took a nap. It was like a Sunday, and I took a nap, and I woke up and I had sold 100 books, and I was like, I like this business. I
Yeah,
I like the
I
idea of
literally took a
going
nap.
going to sleep and waking up and realizing that you're 100 books richer, whatever. But I think but I think what's interesting about what you're doing is that you're finding a way to, not so much separate your time from it, but to give yourself some freedom. And I think that's really interesting because I'm older than you, and it's sort of tradition that you go work in a corporate environment, and you work a lifetime, and then you retire, you get a watch, and then you die, a year later, right? So
Hmm.
so and for me, it took me 22 years in corporate to realize this. I didn't want to do that. I want to go do something on my own.
Hmm.
And it's sounds like it didn't take you that long for you to come to that realization.
I guess I got a little bit lucky on that aspect and kind of realizing the entrepreneurial journey. John, one thing you mentioned over there, which is it has taken me a while to like truly understand the concept of, is thinking about your business as an asset.
Yeah.
This goes back to your goal, right? If you just want to make X amount of money and you're like, I don't mind selling my time for that money as long as I have it, that's
Right.
fine. At that point, though, your business is not an asset. An asset produces you income as you're taking a nap. That's an asset.
Yeah.
So I think the goal of most businesses, in my mind, should be to build it in a way where it is an asset to you, not a time suck for you, not a liability
Right.
for you. So that is kind of how I've structured made this from the beginning as much as I could, right? At the beginning, I had to devote a lot of my time to it. But as you scale and you quickly realize, hey, I don't want this to constrain my lifestyle. I want this to be remote. Or, hey, I going to start hiring people. I know it's going to cost me money, but I don't want it to take up my time. At that point, you start to have a real asset. And I think it's a small subtle shift in the way you think about your business, in the way you think about entrepreneurship as well.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Think of it as an asset. Think of it, yeah. If you can separate your total amount of time towards your business, then it becomes an asset or an income
Mm-hmm.
stream versus something that you're spending, 80 hours a week,
Otherwise, you
trying.
just built yourself a job.
Yeah, right. You just have another job, right? What do they say? An entrepreneur. This is the kind of the funny definition: is an entrepreneur who works 80 hours a week, so doesn't have to work 40, right? So
Yeah.
that's always the joke. But that's not the way you should build your business, is what you're saying. There's other ways to do it. Create, if you will, an asset that creates income for you while you're able to be separate from the business and have some freedom.
Exactly.
And I think that to be honest with you, the more I've seen as I've gotten older, what I want more is freedom versus
Mm.
versus having that job with the title and the status and the car and all that. That's not important to me. Freedom is much more important to me. And I think it
Hmm.
sounds like you've found a nice niche in where you're getting the freedom, but you're also being an entrepreneur, but you're doing it in a way that is remote, and it's local as well. So it's kind of a neat mix that you've found.
Yeah, thank you for that, John. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey, very difficult journey, and I think if anyone says entrepreneurship's easy, they're completely lying. It is very hard, but very rewarding.
So last question, and then we'll let you plug the business. What are some lessons you've learned over the past 8 years?
Whew. Here's one lesson as it relates to leadership. Your business can only go as far as you, the leader, go yourself in your personal development journey. So you won't. It'd be hard pressed to find a super successful business with someone who hasn't done some inner work in developing themselves. At the
Mm,
flip side, you throw Elon Musk in my role, I guarantee the business is going to explode, right? Because he's done his work. He's a great leader.
right.
So the business is truly a reflection of you in terms of how far it can go. So I think doing the work on yourself and trying to improve your leadership skills, trying to improve your business savvy skills, will help you go further along in business. That's probably the one key takeaway I've realized only recently, is how directly that's correlated with each other.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think leaders have to continuously be learning and trying to grow and develop. And if you're stagnant, I don't think that you're going to be successful. I think you constantly have to be learning and exposing yourself to new ideas. And I think it
Yeah.
sounds like you've found that to be
Yeah.
true as well.
So that probably the one, and the second biggest lesson I think would be, to be honest, I think at the beginning of my journey, I just did not, I was scared to spend money, right? I
Yeah.
was scared to like put money into SEO, put money into things. And I think that hindered my growth of the business as much as it should have been. So I'd probably just advise people to be a little bit more aggressive. And if you could pay to cut down your timeline, like why not? Right. Like I hire
Right.
coaches all the time now, because if they could guide me one direction where I don't have to do a bunch of trial and error in another direction, I've just saved a bunch of months of trial and error. And yeah, I spend money to pay the coach, but I've saved a ton of time and effort, a ton of probably potentially more money gone in the other direction. So now with everything I do, I always hire a coach or a mastermind group or some sort of guidance, because floundering by yourself is just wasting time, and that's not what we
Hmm.
want to do.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably my lesson would probably be just the opposite. I was probably too aggressive in the beginning. So,
Oh, really? Hey, I guess the personality thing.
so I was saying probably need to be a little more conservative in the beginning.
Yeah.
Um, well, this is great. So, how can people find out more about your company, about you, about your podcast? Where can they go?
Yeah, sure. If you get to maidthisfranchise.com, MAIDTHIS franchise.com, shoot a message there. You can find out more about the opportunity if you're interested in it. For anyone listening, if you want to contact me directly, just go to neelparekh.com. Hit me up on there, mention you came from John's show, and happy to provide as many resources and feedback as I can. So feel free to message me.
No, that sounds good, Neel. I appreciate you being on the show and sharing your story.
Cool. It's awesome, John. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Deep Leadership. If you like this podcast, please subscribe and share so we can continue to build a world with better bosses. Until next time, this is John Reddy saying take care and lead well.